My name is Nino Carvalho, and this is my wife, Candy Carvalho. We uh, we live in Tranquility, California, which is right in the center of California, right in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. I am a third generation row crop farmer on one side of my family, which was my father's side. My mom's side was I would have been a fourth generation farmer. They had a dairy farm, but I took the row crop route. I went to Tranquility High School, went on to went to college in San Luis Obispo, Cal Poly, which was about 2 hours away from home. Came back, started my own small custom application business while I was in college. Kind of got myself through college doing that. Did that. Was big enough when I came home that I grew that business. And my passion was always the farm, but family wasn't, my dad and grandfather had farmed, but they had experienced some tough financial times, and it wasn't really big enough for myself to come back to. So I continued on with my custom application business. The neighbors around, there was a demand for it, sprayed their crops with all the crop protection products there are. A farm next to us came up for lease. The family was going to quit farming, and they were going to lease out the farm. And even though my dad wasn't able to really help me out 100% financially, he helped me out with the opportunity, right, with the lease. And he said, if I've got this lease for you, because I know you want to farm, but he says, you're going to have to go out and find your own financing. And went out. And that's where, you start really learning about life, and not everything is easy. And that's where the journey started. I found some financing, farmed. It was around 400 acres at the time. And after a couple years, I think it was back in 2004 or 5, when the economy was really booming before the bust in '08. Everybody's buying a home and expanding and doing things. And we bought our first 20 acres. And that's where we really started that was our first purchase. And then went on from there, growing cotton, generally like row crop, cotton, tomatoes, onions, until they became a little bit more economically challenging. So we started planting almond trees. And we developed our 20 into almonds, and then we bought another 20, bought another 40 eventually over the next 5 or 6 years, and continued to lease another, at one time we leased 500 up to 1,000 acres, but we continued to build our own farm and have our own, our application business. And that's how we got to where we are today. My family struggled financially for, 15, 20 years. And what happened was, my dad and grandfather had bought and purchased farm property out west, and the ground was it was nothing that my family really did. It was their ground became contaminated with groundwater because there was a huge drainage system in the Central California Valley that the water it was all tiled. It came down to one point, and our farm was on the low point of the valley, and it was to drain out. Well, as that process happened, to make it short and easy, the project never got finished because of environmental reasons. They were saying the ducks were being hurt and, waterfowl. So they plugged those drains where the valley was continued to be irrigated, and we were just on the low end. right? So our crops were affected. The water table was coming up. The water was very brackish. It wasn't good for farming. And, we farmed there, trying to farm our property, and it became, not profitable after a while. So I watched my dad and grandfather basically go to nothing, selling it, getting rid of it, owing vendors, just the magnitude that he went through. I remember my dad come home every day and just kind of curl up on the floor after dinner and lay there, right? And it was all a byproduct of that, but they never took it out on us. Does that make sense? Never took it out on my sister and I. I have a sister. They shielded us. They provided for us. And I look back to think that I look back and told him, I can't believe that you even did it. I would have just gave up, right? I would have moved on. And his answer always to me was, I couldn't. Grandpa was there. What was he going to do? And, that sense of loyalty that maybe we all battle with, like even as the group of Legacy, how long do you stay? How long do you not, But he did. He went to almost nothing, completely nothing, and built it all back again. And I didn't really see that and what that took until how old I am now. I mean, I saw my dad go from absolutely nothing and come back to have a nice, viable farm. I mean, and never gave up, right? But at the same time, he handled that the best way he knew how to handle that, right? And that's where I think I lived in a lot of scarcity. I was always afraid, right? Oh God, I got to make sure I have enough money to pay that bill. I've got to. I mean, it consumed me. It did. My whole life, and I look back and I think that's where it came from, and no fault to anybody, right? But that's now I know how maybe you can look at that a little bit different, right? Maybe there's different tools you can use to get through those mindsets and enjoy a little bit more on that path, right? And doing that passion you love, and like us, farming and ranching. I've learned this in the last couple of years. It's total conditioning of why I maybe am the way I am and why I thought the way I did. The farm was not big enough to come back to, right? Like I said, we were going through. So my application business started, and I leased a 500-acre ranch, and Candy and I continued to buy a couple hundred acres of our own along the last 20 years and develop it. My dad at that same time rebuilt his own. So if you were to, there's one thing I see a lot of families struggle with in the group is that family coming back to the family farm and all the issues that brings. My dad helped me with different opportunities, right? Like, hey, there's this lease coming up. Hey, you need to borrow a tractor? Sure, take it, son. And it's what you did with that opportunity, he always told me, right? And I knew a lot of people and friends that had opportunity but just didn't do anything with it. So gifts come in different ways, right? Maybe it's not money all the time. Maybe it's opportunities, how I look at it. But it was always separate. But to this day, if you looked from our farm, if you drove by our farm and where we, our headquarters or where we keep all of our equipment, you would think it's one big farm, right? But we farm it as one big farm. But he has his own, I have my own, and we help each other out through the way. Hey, we don't worry about, hey, I'm using his tractor to disc this end, and and he always said it was the best way because when we started our own family, there's no animosities, there's no, it's your life. You get to make those decisions on which, and he was there. My dad was always there to guide me with those.
But wouldn't you say your dad is hoping, and why he does it is because he's hoping that our son is going to go and continue to take.
I've seen my dad struggle.
Mom and dad worked.
And it's probably like every member on this group, the passion, right, of farming and ranching that people just absolutely love. And I've seen my dad has that. And my dad would, maybe this isn't the right decision, but he's contemplated that. I don't think if I sold my farm today, I don't think I could ever make the same dollar amount as if I just sold it farming, right? And to be honest with you, the only reason he keeps it and stays going is just because of his grandson and myself. You know what I mean? And there's that old school passion that is still embedded in him.